Hey, greetings everybody. It is GleeCon back at you again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. On our last episode, we ran through Thunder Bluff, and then we ran down, and we went back up as a Tauren shaman and finished off the Mulgore and Thunder Bluff kind of areas. There's actually a couple quests to go into Ragefire Chasm from that, but we're not quite ready for that yet. We also have some. We've been reading the World of Warcraft role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting. We're down to the final 4 books. It's still, as you've seen, the pace we're going, that's still quite a lot of material. So there used to be a book that was, I don't remember what it was exactly called. We'd have to scroll back some episodes and look. But it was essentially like a, kind of like a human and alliance kind of guide about the races and how each faction kind of played. Well, this is one of the main differences. They've split this up into 2 source books when they revamped them. And there's a Horde Player's Guide, and next we'll read the Alliance Player's Guide. And then there's just a couple books left after that. Before we start, we totally pivot and go another direction with our weird side lore. So stay a while and listen as we kick off the first chapter of the Horde Player's Guide. This is not in the voice of Brand Bronzebeard or any other character for that matter. It does say, I can't remember where I read it. It's called by Azamor. Now, I don't know if Azamor is a player, the person that uploaded it, or if that's supposed to be the voice. I'm not sure. We'll kind of find out as we go along. But just from glancing at things, and we'll talk about the player's content, the table of contents here in just a second. It seems like this is a lot more rule based. So we will be really kind of probably blazing through this whole book in about the time it took us to get through one chapter of the last one. Kind of the same treatment we did for some of the other ones. Okay, so it says you are probably playing a member of the Horde if you're interested in this book, but it does give us information for both. Playing from a Dungeons and Dragons sense. So we will read the sidebars as it's saying right here. If you see one of these, a sidebar is a fiction piece, which is pretty cool. So we're going to definitely read those. The first chapter talks about new races. The second chapter gives us new class options. The third chapter discusses some new prestige classes. The fourth chapter, probably new magic and faith. Technology is chapter 5. Now, history and culture. Will Bran ever finish his book? This one is maybe one that we're going to delve into more deeply. Chapter 7 being Horde history and the and current affairs. So that might be another something we look at. This says, hey, if you're interested in this, go to Warcraft RPG. No, we did that on a previous episode. This is a cap. This is now like a Vampire the Masquerade fan site, planning site, and even that's like not kept up to date. So sorry, the people that run Warcraft RPG, they switched they're undead now, but they no longer have any content available on this, which is a shame because they do reference in a couple of the books some things that would have been neat. This is a jacked Tauren, total Chad bot. That's pretty much me when I take my shirt off, including the horns. The Alliance and Horde Compendium, that's what it was called. So this is a revamp of that. It says all of the information of that book is still compatible. They just hope this is an improvement. Yeah, this is a cash grab. Honestly, to be real, just give these people something to do. Not that I'm complaining. I like the stuff. We're here reading it together, but okay. Then they talk about the Horde military. So maybe some of how that PvP type stuff reflects in Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know, because there was in the original source book there was definitely whole units on how to run massive wars. Some new creatures, and finally some new adventures that we'll look at. So we are going to read the first chapter, or just kind of glance through it. Neutral, and others here. 3 new races we get here. There's the half-ogre, the half-orc, and the forest troll. The forest troll, I guess that would be sort of like the trolls from Warcraft 2. Half-orcs would be like, what's his name? Rexar. I mean, no, that's half-ogre. And half-orc, well, I'm guessing, so like Garona, maybe? Okay. The half-ogres, they get a strength bonus, of course, but they lose those intelligence and charisma. Half-orcs lose spirit, which is basically wisdom, but gain stamina. Ah, that's why they've called it spirit, because that's what we're calling it in classic. And then the forest trolls, they lose intelligence. I don't like that. And charisma. I don't know that I like that, but they gain agility. But they are the forest trolls. Okay. So we'll read through it. Description. Half ogres, from whom the orcs call Mochnethal, are created in the rare unions of orcs and ogres. I just can't imagine that happening. Like, that's what you need, really. Some ogre orc fan fiction where you get some. I mean, there's all these like weird Pixar romantic and anime romantic things that are popular right now. Let's get some pixelated Warcraft classic ogre orc love. Orcs originally bred half-ogres to combine the power of an ogre with the intelligence and cunning of an orc. However, half-ogres proved to be more stubborn than either race, bearing a horrendous independent streak. Little could change a half-ogre's mind once set, so the project was scrapped. Shamanistic orcs honored half-ogres as noble and savage creatures of the land, but quickly the race dwindled as few orcs would willingly breed with the gigantic ogres. Recently, half-ogres reappeared in the world following the exploits of Rexxar, champion of the Horde and the greatest Mochnethal to ever live. While still rare, more and more half-ogres come out of the woods each day trying to find a place to call their own. Even in the presence of friends, a half-ogre is quiet and withdrawn, uncomfortable around creatures that talk back. A half-ogre would choose to be out hunting or exploring a new wilderness rather than take a drink at a bar, and most half-ogres exhibit signs of claustrophobia. The ruling force in life for half-ogres is honor. A half-ogre's word is his life, even among the rare evil half-ogres. Once a half-ogre gives his friendship to a person, that person is a friend for life, and the half-ogre willingly sacrifices himself for those under his protection or those he loves. Most half-ogres honor the vows of another half-ogre, and thus a person who earns the trust of one half-ogre is assured that she has earned the trust of all half-ogres. Now, I think it's odd that a race which has two sides, orcs and ogres, that are prone to evil, just experiences no evil on its own. And I think this is suffering from the fact that there are next to no Mochnethal heroes in the lore. So the entire race categorization is being colored by how we view Rexxar. Absolutely a hero, an honorable person, an individual stubborn person. But we're essentially blanket casting the entire race in the image of Rexxar, which I think there's room to grow in this area. Half-ogres are towering creatures who vaguely resemble their orc and ogre parents. They stand as big as a tauren, sometimes bigger, with broad and powerful shoulders and thick, blunt skulls. Their eyes are small and usually black, while their massive lower jaws bear great tusks. Half-ogre skin tone is a non-metallic gold hue with varying levels of yellow and red admixture. Most half-ogres are mistaken for small ogres or rarely massive orcs. Region half-ogres do not have a region to call their own. Solitary wanderers by nature, half-ogres are found sporadically in most woods in Kalimdor and Stormwind. Most are found near major ogre settlements or former settlements, leftovers from ogre aggressions and old habits of Legion-affiliated orcs. Now, where do they tie them into Stormwind? Affiliations Horde. While half-ogres prefer animals to people, they realize that they have a greater part to play in the world. Following the champion Rexxar, most living half-ogres offered their assistance to the Horde. Many half-ogres still refuse to officially join the Horde, but Thrall knows that he may call upon half-ogres in times of need. Faith, almost unanimously, half-ogres revere the nature that feeds and protects them. To them, the wild is much safer and more familiar than any civilization. Some of the greatest hunters and druids among the Horde's ranks are half-ogres who combine both physical and spiritual strength in ways only the tauren can match. Names. Half-ogre names are closer to ogre than orc names. Their first names are almost always single syllable and guttural. A half-ogre's family name, however, always bears a beast or plant symbol, which may be the closest to a family that she's had. Their surnames reflect their life choices and accomplishments, and the race wears them as badges of honor. Trials of rights are fought over family names, with the victor earning the name and the loser shamed. I don't know why this says satyr right there. Weird. Okay, so let's see. Low light vision. They have a powerful build. Oh, if you had a human half-ogre. Ogres crossed the dark portal into Azeroth over 24 years ago, thus half-human half-ogres may exist. If the rumors of their existence are true, most half-human half-ogres are products of ogre aggression on human villagers. So it says they could look human, but rounder ears, pinker skin, and small tusks. And instead of mixed blood, they get ogre blood. So later on, we'll get mixed blood, I'm looking. And they're considered a human and an ogre. And half-ogre magi. Ogre magi were the creations of Gul'dan during the Second War, but they refused to mate with orcs for the purpose of creating Mach Nathal. Half-ogres are considered ogres for spells and effects, however, and they qualify for the Ogre Mage template. If your GM allows you, you may apply the Ogre Mage template to a half-ogre, though doing so carries the normal adjustment level template thing. Okay, they're also one size larger. We have advanced. Oh, if you wanted to take racial levels, because that's still a thing, this is what you would get with your stats and saves. Mixed blood. They have a bonus to AC to a thick hide. They get to pick some Tarahes and Dali, basically Horde languages. And they talk about the racial levels that they could get. At third level, they can continue to grow in size and get even bigger, which would confer some of these benefits. Okay. All right. Let's talk about half-orcs now. Orcs and humans can interbreed, and the union creates half-orcs, and orcs and Draenei for that matter. So we still haven't veered away from that. So this is still, we're thinking of human orcs. Human and orcs have been enemies for decades, and half-orcs represent something both races prefer not to think about. Half-orc genesis is usually violent and perverse, and their appearance, too bestial to be human, too clean to be orc, reminds the parent races of the rift between them and the horrible deeds each has performed on the other. Thus, most humans and orcs ignore half-orcs. Other races are a little better, as the human-orc conflict is only one facet of the alliance, horde tensions upon which no one likes to dwell. Conversely, some see half-orcs as symbols of unity. Not all half-orcs are born to abused or victimized parents. Some are the children of clandestine love. So it makes me kind of think, not what Jaina and Thrall did, but relationships that grew in that way. Perhaps half-orcs represent what could be accomplished if the races put aside their differences and live in peace. After all, if humans and orcs, with their history of hatred and bloodshed and wildly different origins, can produce viable offspring, perhaps the races are not as different as they think. Half-orcs face mixed reactions. Even more so than half-elves, half-orcs are the targets of rage and derision brought about by stress. Azeroth is a violent place, and tensions thrum like taut wires. The Third War lives in recent memory, and most humans and orcs lost loved ones at the hands of the other side. Half-orcs find little welcome, though the situation is better in the larger, more enlightened settlements. Unlike half-elves who prefer to wander or blend in to avoid prejudice, half-orcs are vocal, daring, and foolishly brave. Product of their parent race's pride, courage, and ferocity, half-orcs refuse to accept bias lightly. They demand attention. Half-orcs commit to audacious dares and acts of suicidal bravery to prove their worth to their parent races. Occasionally they succeed. Appearance. Half-orcs are a bit taller and heavier than humans, standing around 6.5 feet in height and weighing 200 to 250 pounds. Males are noticeably taller and heavier than females. Half-orc skin ranges from light green to grayish-brown. Half-orc hair is coarse like an orc's and ranges from brown to black in color. The orc lineage is unmistakable, but half-orc features are not as pronounced as those of the orc parent. A half-orc's ears are not quite as large, the nose not as piggish, and the tusks just far less. Both humans and orcs view half-orcs as physically ugly, a view which infects some half-orcs with self-loathing. Half-orcs live longer than their orc parents, with lifespans equivalent to a human's. Region. Refer to the human and orc racial entries if raised by humans. A half-orc most likely makes Theramore or Stormwind home if raised by orcs. She probably comes from the city of Orgrimmar in Durotar. Affiliation, alliance, or horde. A half-orc's affiliation depends on where and how she was raised. Still, half-orcs more often find a place within the horde. Orcs are more accepting as they remember when they were lost to the Burning Legion. Orcs believe that everyone deserves a chance in these times, whereas most humans find it difficult to ignore half-orcs' obviously orc qualities. Elves and dwarves lump half-orcs in with the orc side of things, while Tauren and goblins prove more tolerant. Half-orcs can find kindred spirits in half-elves, who may be shunned in the same way. Faith. Since many half-orcs belong to the Horde, they study the shamanistic practices of their orc forebears. They find the spirits more accepting than any earthly race. Half-orcs are also curious about the Holy Light, and those raised among humans may follow this philosophy. Their names, they take the naming practices of the race in which they were raised. Half-orcs raised in human lands often take orc first names to display their heritage and vice versa. And let's see, they're medium, low light vision, they get orc blood. They have furious strength, which is basically like the rage. They're resistant against fear. They get bonuses to intimidate and basically insight, which would be now sense motive. They don't have a favorite class. They get to pick. Okay, and finally we'll talk about forest trolls. During the Second War, the heroes of Jin organized all the forest troll tribes into one cohesive army and joined the Horde. They left once it was obvious the orcs weren't going to win, but one small sect, the Revan Tusk tribe, recently agreed to once again be affiliated loosely with the Horde. In contrast to their wily jungle troll cousins, forest trolls are savage. Oh, not only are they cannibals, sorry, I jumped down here. Like other trolls, forest trolls live for slaughtering lesser races, especially the high elves, whom they despise. Forest trolls believe that they are superior to every other race on Azeroth, prone to quoting just how powerful their former empire was. In battle, a forest troll throws himself furiously into the thick and prefers throwing axes over the javelins jungle trolls favor. Everything about the forest troll speaks of savagery and undisciplined battle, even during peaceful times. Like the Darkspears, the Revan Tusk tribe is atypical and is well disciplined and even occasionally merciful in battle. Look at that little potbelly troll with a nipple ring. Here, let's read a little flavor. Doth Jin stood hidden in the tree, one he chose for its perfect vantage point. He knew an elven convoy was on its way. Gripping his hand axe, he peered through the leaves, waiting for the expected caravan. His limbs were cramped from the hours spent at ready, though he knew he could make them move with speed. Forest trolls were tough. Creaking wheels sounded, and Doth Jin broke into a hideous grin. He could almost smell the elf's blood beneath him. Bending knees that were stiff from fatigue, he uttered a quick prayer before leaping out of the tree, screaming a battle roar as he descended into glorious battle. Okay. The appearance of forest trolls resembles their jungle troll cousins, but they're taller and more muscled. Their hair ranges from blood red to midnight black, while their skins are a deep olive green. Forest trolls decorate their bodies with rituals, scarring, and piercings, and they prefer white or dark war paints, symbolizing their power and glory. Other forest trolls, other than the Revan Tusk forest trolls, are most likely to join a party of Horde adventurers. Members of other tribes hate the Horde for failing to fulfill its promise to restore the Amani Empire. The Revan Tusks have learned to accept other races and even trust certain individuals. Among the Horde, only the Tauren truly respect the Revan Tusk tribe. Even their jungle troll cousins cannot bring themselves to accept their vile cousins yet. The region naturally forest trolls prefer thick forests, where they come into conflict with the despised high elves, as well as wild-hammer dwarves. The Revan Tusk tribe resides in the hinterlands in the coastal town of Revan Tusk Village. We haven't not been there yet in Classic, but yes, we know the region. Affiliation, independent, most forest troll tribes keep to their own agendas, but the Revan Tusk tribe is now loosely allied with the Horde. While not members of the Horde, they are its friends. They know compassion, though they find it a bit difficult to relate to the Darkspear jungle trolls. Revan Tusk forest trolls still carry a racial hatred of elves and are ever ready to attack the Alliance. They view humans and other Alliance races as elf sympathizers and gleefully destroy them. Like all trolls, most forest trolls are savage and violent. While the Revan Tusks learn restraint and even camaraderie, they haven't entirely thrown off their old ways. Forest trolls of all types war with anything in range of their territory, even other tribes of forest trolls, and thus the Revan Tusks feel no remorse over slaying their wild brothers. Faith, most Revan Tusk forest trolls follow the precepts of voodoo. While less prone to magic than other subraces, forest trolls still practice alchemical arts and worship dark voodoo spirits. Some forest trolls also worship Hakar, the Soul Flayer, though jungle trolls outnumber forest trolls in this demography. Forest trolls follow the same naming conventions as jungle trolls, though some of the suffixes and prefixes differ. Okay, and here's their stat block. This is the last page of this. So this is the vitals. Oh, looks like we've lost a page. Well, we haven't lost a page. It just, oh, I see. No, we didn't. The word's right here. Basically, they have this. They're just saying they have the same traits as jungle trolls. They just receive Zendali instead of common. And their vital statistics of all of them, we get ages and when basically that's it. Ages, heights, and weight modifiers. Okay, so cool. I was thinking, wow, man, they're only doing Horde races, but duh, this is the Horde book. So I think there's 10-ish chapters, so we're about a tenth of the way through. It's cool. Some more, some less of the time we're going to spend on this. All right, everybody, I appreciate you listening. We got another episode in the pipe, 5x5. I look forward to seeing everybody next time on Lore of Warcraft.